Buddhism for Today, The Essential Wisdom of the Threefold Lotus Sutra by Nikkyo Niwano. Part 1, The Sutra of Innumerable Meanings. Chapter 1, The Virtuous Practices. As discussed above, this chapter is the introductory section of the Sutra of Innumerable Meanings. In this chapter, a multitude of bodhisattvas praise the virtues of the Buddha, bearing witness to the magnificence of the world-honored one. The chapter opens with the phrase, "Thus have I heard," followed by a beautifully embellished description of the scene where the Buddha taught the sutra. At that time, the Buddha was staying at the monastery on Mount Gridrakutta, or Divine Eagle Peak, accompanied by a large number of people and non-human living beings, first among them a gathering of 12,000 great monks. A monk is a male monastic practitioner who renounces home life to devote themselves wholly to a religious path. Great monks, in particular, refer to the direct disciples of Shakyamuni Buddha, such as Shariputra or Mahakashyapa. Although these monks were not bodhisattvas, they had already reached the stage of Arhat by practicing the teachings of the lesser vehicle. Arhat means a practitioner who has completely eliminated all delusions. The number 12,000 need not be taken literally. Going forward, we will come across many enormous quantities in the Threefold Lotus Sutra, and we can best understand these statements as metaphorically expressing the notion of a great number or large amount. The Buddha was also accompanied by many bodhisattva mahasattvas. A bodhisattva is a person or being who cultivates the practices of the great vehicle. In Sanskrit, maha means great, and sattva, person. Consequently, a bodhisattva mahasattva indicates a great person or great leader, that is, a person who has a great goal or aspiration. They are called bodhisattvas because they all possess the grand aspiration of achieving Buddhahood by pursuing the supreme perfect awakening while teaching and transforming all living beings. Embracing other religions. Numerous heavenly beings, dragons, yakshas, and other spirit demons, and various creatures are also present for the Buddha's teaching. Heavenly beings reside in the heavenly realms, dragons live at the bottom of the sea, yakshas are a type of flying demon. The assembly includes all types of beings, from dangerous spirit demons thought to exist in India at the time, to insects, worms, and snakes. The diversity shown in this scene demonstrates an important characteristic of Buddhism that distinguishes it from many other faiths. The Buddha does not guide only human beings to enlightenment, but possesses enough boundless compassion to impartially sustain and liberate all things in existence. This is precisely why the Buddha allows even flesh-eating demons, symbolic of people who do evil, to attend his teachings. Neither does the Buddha exclude the gods of other faiths from the scene of his teachings, and so all beings gather to listen to the words of the Buddha together. This latter practice is extremely significant, as it demonstrates the Buddha's embrace of people of all faiths. Homage and offerings. In addition to the direct disciples of Shakyamuni and the Bodhisattva Mahasattvas, the sutra tells us that the assembly is also crowded with ordinary monks, nuns, laymen and laywomen, and people of each and every class, including kings of great virtue, princes, their ministers, noblemen and noblewomen, ordinary citizens who formed the middle class of that time, landowners, and the wealthy. All of these human beings express their devotion to the Buddha by respectfully bowing at his feet and walking around him many times in procession. After making offerings, by burning incense or scattering flowers, they all move to one side. Paying respect with offerings is an action that expresses gratitude to the Buddha. If our hearts are filled with true gratitude, it will be expressed in our behavior. When Buddhists respect and revere an altar where the Buddha is enshrined, by giving offerings of flour, tea, or water, burning incense, ringing a gong, or bowing, they are expressing their gratitude through action. Bodhisattvas assembled. The multitude of bodhisattvas present at the assembly are all true leaders who embody many magnificent virtues, including the following 5 of special importance, known as the 5-part Dharma body: precepts, sila, observing the Buddha's guidelines for moral behavior without deviation; meditation, dhyana, having a mind that is focused and composed; wisdom, prajna, possessing profound insight; emancipation, vimukti, complete freedom from worldly delusion and suffering; and perception of emancipation, vimukti jhana, being consciously aware of one's freedom from delusion and suffering. The bodhisattvas gathered at the assembly are tranquil in mind, undisturbed by sudden changes in their environment or circumstances, maintain the highest state of meditation, and are perpetually centered on a single path of practice with no distractions. They are free of conditions, meaning they never think about anything selfishly, and, without desire, they lack attachments to material things. Unburdened by the self-interested perspective of distorted minds, they are impervious to confusion and distraction, and are never thrown off by insignificant problems or random thoughts. They are serene and clear, with resolve that is vast and expansive, and their minds are pure, always in deep contemplation. These bodhisattvas remember all the innumerable teachings of the Buddha because they have maintained such a state of mind for an extremely long period of time. Furthermore, having attained great wisdom, they have the ability to see the reality of all things clearly. Wisdom. Wisdom is a word that will appear frequently in the text of the sutra. The Chinese word for wisdom is written with two characters, ji and hui, which are translations of the Sanskrit terms jnana and prajna. Jnana is the ability to distinguish the difference between things. For instance, to differentiate this person named John from that person who is called Mary. Prajna, on the other hand, is the capacity to discover the truth that all things share. John and Mary have many different attributes, but beyond these distinctions, they are both human beings. They both possess Buddha nature and are equally capable of becoming Buddhas. Prajna is the ability to perceive this equality. Buddhism teaches us that when we fully possess both these capabilities, we have wisdom, and we can correctly perceive all things. Bodhisattva's virtues and practices. Bodhisattvas in full possession of these virtues can successfully spread the teachings, that is, as the sutra says, they can roll the wheel of the Dharma just as the Buddhas do. Importantly, this section of the sutra provides a particularly clear explanation of the order in which to introduce, elaborate on, and spread the teachings of the Buddha. First, as the sutra describes in lyrical terms, when bodhisattvas sprinkle drops of the teachings on the parched earth, the dust of desire no longer rises into the air for living beings at that place. In the beginning, it is sufficient to quench only a few particles of the dust of desire, by allowing people to hear only the equivalent of several drops of the Buddha's teachings. As the sutra tells us, even this sprinkling of the teaching becomes the entrance to Nirvana's gate. Afterwards, bodhisattvas progressively teach the path to liberation, helping people extinguish each of the delusions and sufferings they face in their daily lives. These people will experience a refreshing joy. It is as if just hearing the Dharma has cleansed their minds. Next, bodhisattvas teach the 12 causes and conditions for people struggling with the suffering associated with ignorance, aging, illness, and death. The 12 causes and conditions extinguish their suffering, just as an afternoon thunder shower cools people sweltering in the summer heat. Up to this point, the bodhisattvas have used teachings of the lesser vehicle, but, moving forward, they introduce the teachings of the great vehicle. The principle of the 12 causes and conditions is one of the core teachings of Buddhism, providing a detailed account of the course of human beings' life from birth to death, and describing the process of transmigration or reincarnation through 3 temporal states of existence, from our previous life to this life, from this life to the next. This important teaching also explains that human beings' fundamental ignorance is the source of all suffering and distress in our lives, and that we can eliminate suffering and distress by completely severing the bonds of ignorance. The 12 causes and conditions are explored in greater detail in my commentary of Chapter 7 of the Lotus Sutra, the parable of the conjured city. Bodhisattvas teach and transform living beings in the sequence outlined above, nurturing people's seeds of goodness so that they develop into sprouts of Buddhahood. These bodhisattvas have good knowledge of the methods or skillful means that they need in order to guide people, promote the Mahayana teaching, and encourage people to obtain supreme perfect awakening, Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, so that they do not detour from the path of the Buddha. The phrase, quickly accomplish supreme perfect awakening, appears often in the Threefold Lotus Sutra. Here the word quickly does not refer to speed or velocity, but means traveling the way to Buddhahood by proceeding straight ahead without diverting from the path. This distinction might seem trivial, but it is nevertheless an important point. Next, the text conveys just how important these bodhisattvas are to living beings by highly praising their virtues with various metaphors. It also extols many of the gathered monks as worthy arhats who have removed the confusion strangling their minds and completely extinguished all delusions. Commending the virtues of the bodhisattvas and great monks is not merely empty praise. These passages provide a model for us by indicating how these people put the teachings of the Buddha into practice. We cannot become the same as the Buddha in one giant leap. In the beginning, we have to learn from these examples of the conduct of the great monks and bodhisattvas. Doing so, however, sometimes leaves us feeling that it is impossible to follow their examples, because their practices are very far removed from the realities of our daily lives. This feeling is natural, but it is no reason to give up. We can obtain the key that opens the door to awakening by following even one of the virtuous bodhisattva practices the sutra describes. The Bodhisattva Great Adornment's praise of the Buddha. Now, from among the multitude, a certain bodhisattva called Great Adornment sees that all those gathered at the assembly are seated with their minds at rest, and that the stage has been set for the Buddha to teach. Together with the many bodhisattvas, Great Adornment rises quietly from his seat, bows before the world-honored one, and makes many kinds of offerings to the Buddha. Next, the Bodhisattva Great Adornment kneels down in front of the Buddha and praises him in verse. These poetic passages of sutras, or gatha, restate the major points of the sutra in elegant verse and are frequently used to extol the virtues of the Buddha and Bodhisattvas. First, the Bodhisattva Great Adornment leads the entire group in praising the exalted mind of the Buddha, which is awakened to the truth of all things, surpasses everything, and can freely guide all things in the universe. Next, the Bodhisattvas admire the beauty of the Buddha's face, body, and voice, all of which embody and give natural expression to the Buddha's virtues. Then the Bodhisattvas praise and express gratitude for the transformative influence that the teachings of the Buddha have on human beings. Finally, they honor the Buddha for the extremely long period of time that he selflessly persevered in practice, withstood all hardships, put aside everything else, and ceaselessly strove to liberate all beings from suffering. The result of this practice was the attainment of great wisdom, which the Buddha uses to awaken all beings. The Bodhisattvas conclude their verse by taking wholehearted refuge in the Buddha as the one whose efforts have accomplished such difficult things. Praising Shakyamuni in these ways imprints the ideal of the Buddha, a remarkable person who is the unequaled, perfected human individual, deep within our minds. When inscribed on our minds, the image and powers of the Buddha become timeless ideals to which we aspire. This is why we should read these passages praising the Buddha with the utmost seriousness. The tribute that leaves us with the greatest impression is comprised of these final lines of the sutra. All of us together again bow our heads and take refuge in the one whose efforts have accomplished such difficult things. Adoration of the Buddha as the greatly enlightened great sacred leader culminates by praising his perseverance, which is the process of attaining Buddhahood. The fact that this crescendo emphasizes the process or effort over the result is the most significant point of this verse.